Hi there, good morning. Thanks for joining us. It is Monday. It is January the 27th. We have seen snow and blowing snow, temperatures dropping throughout the day today, winds gusting anywhere from 60 to 70 kilometers an hour this morning. Your commute is going to be awful.
Let me see your knuckles.
Why, you hit them?
No, they're still white.
Oh.
The white knuckle drive today, it is dangerous. I had a guy spin out right into the ditch ahead of me coming down 9th line from Georgetown. Very treacherous conditions, whiteouts, a lot of places. Already seen numerous crashes right across southern Ontario.
All right, well, the snow has now started to really track off.
And this morning.
Yeah, somebody blew by me in a pickup truck thinking they were all that, and then they turned around and they spun out, and all of a sudden they were facing me. It's cold. We're looking at -6, feeling like -14.
Pretty darn cold out there. It's still in the -30s.
Yeah, it is not going to be pleasant to be outside. Again, reminder, keep kids indoors if you can. Pets, same thing. Poor Roxy, my puppy, she skinned both of her paws yesterday out on the ice.
Yeah.
So it's not good. We've been talking about the winds and the cold. This is actually one of the coldest winters Canada has seen in the last 20 years. We'll talk more about your long-range forecast, but first I'm going to turn things over to Tom. He's got an update on your commute.
Valentine's Day.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. It is Monday. It's the 27th of January. It is cold. We have wind chill warnings in place. Blowing and drifting snow is going to be an issue. Your commute is going to be an absolute disaster.
Sound like a broken record.
I do a little bit, don't I?
Day in, day out. Same thing over and over.
I know.
It's really not nice. It's like Groundhog Day out there. It's just nonstop.
It just keeps going and
Keeps going and going, and it is nasty. I can hardly.
Pets, same deal. Poor Roxy. She scraped 2 of her back paws yesterday. There was blood everywhere.
Well, you know, the salt is hard on their pads, too. I mean, you really almost need boots for the animals.
Yeah, it's true.
Really, it's just nasty out there.
Well, a lot of people have been digging themselves out these last few days and measuring and then sending us the measurements. This is in through Arthur, Ontario, and 8 feet. Could you imagine? Out front of your house, an 8-foot drift. Well, it has been really bad in some areas not so much, but very, very, very slippery roads this morning. I was traveling eastbound on the QEW and I saw 2 cars spin out in front of me. And Tom, you had the same kind of story coming in from Georgetown, didn't you?
Yeah, a guy going a little too fast. Emily.
Well, we stay cold right into February. Yep, that's it. We've got a cold snap coming through. It's continuing to be cold, feeling like the -20s until midweek, and then we actually warm up slightly. By Thursday, -4, feeling like -11, and then we prepare for the next system that's coming in over the weekend. You think you've got it bad? Coming up, we'll tell you just how much snow Romanians are digging through. We'll get to that in just a moment, but first, they're calling in the military for this one. Large parts of Romania were buried under half a meter of snow this past weekend, and it happened in just 24 hours. The south and east took the biggest hit, but no. 5,000 members of the military have been called in to help clear the roads. Closer to home, the big weather question might be, will the lake effect ever stop? Even tough prairie dwellers are wondering what is up with this winter. But for some people in southern Manitoba, it's as bad as it gets. Thousands are without heat after a pipeline explosion, and the weather is slowing down efforts to get emergency heating to where it's needed. We'll take a look at our long-range forecast, talk about these cold temperatures in just a moment, but first I'm going to turn things over to Tom Reynolds. He has an update on your morning commute. You are going to need a hot breakfast and a hot cup of coffee this morning because you're going to be, well, it's going to be a slow drive, that's for sure. We've got blowing and drifting snow through the GTA. Temperatures are dropping throughout the day today, so many areas have already seen their daytime high. By the afternoon, we're still going to be dealing with blowing and drifting snow. Winds are going to be gusting anywhere from 50 to 60 kilometers an hour, and temperatures are going to feel closer to the -20s with the wind.
Closed captioning is...
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. It's Monday. It is the 27th of January. I'm Emily Vukovic. We'll be checking in with traffic with Tom Reynolds in just a few moments. But first, we want to show you exactly what's going on with this system that's tracking its way through southern Ontario. The good news is that it's primarily out of the GTA. We're primarily out of it in the downtown core. Some areas like Kitchener-Waterloo still seeing some low-lying snow. It's causing some blowing snow and some drifting snow. And we do have watches and warnings in place. We have a snow squall watch up towards Barrie and through Aurelia. We could still see squalls coming off of Huron affecting that area throughout the day today when winds start to shift to a more northwesterly direction, I should say. Now we do have the snow squall warning in place. Mount Forest through Orangeville, blowing and drifting snow certainly going to be an issue. It is cold today. We have a wind chill warning in place for those exact same areas. It is going to feel closer to the -20s to the -30s. And it's all because of these winds. Right now we're seeing winds sustained at about 35 kilometers an hour for Toronto, but gusting up to 50. And we are going to continue to see these winds throughout the morning. Now they're going to be there at their most intense this morning, but they are going to continue to be gusting later on this afternoon, anywhere from 50 to 60 kilometers an hour. Temperatures, we're looking at about -8 for the city of Toronto. We've already reached our daytime high. It feels closer to the -teens, -20s when you factor in the wind. I wish I had great news for this afternoon. Yes, we are going to see a little bit of sunshine, but temperatures are just going to drop throughout the day today. We're looking at -12, feeling like -22 through Toronto, feeling closer to -25 in Hamilton, feeling closer to -22 through Orangeville. Good news. System moves out. Bad news, lake effect starts to pick up again with these winds. See how they're going to shift to more of a southwesterly direction coming over Huron. Not frozen yet, still relatively warm. That's why Barrie and Aurelia, that's why you could see those squalls continuing throughout the day today. So we've got an additional 5 to 15 centimeters in the snow squall watch and warning areas. Throughout the city of Toronto, we're looking at less than 2 centimeters, so a trace to 2 centimeters continuing through tomorrow morning. So the worst of it is over, but we're going to continue to see blowing and drifting snow. That now is going to be our biggest concern. Talk about your long-range forecast. Is this cold going to last forever? I'll have that answer coming up. But first, Tom, what's going on the roads? Temperatures staying very cold. We've got that Arctic air sticking around for the next few days, but by Thursday we start to warm up. We'll see a system overnight into Friday giving us a few centimeters of snow, and then the next system comes in to start off the weekend. Because not only is your commute going to be a tricky one, the weather is freezing. It is so cold this morning. Temperatures are actually going to be dropping throughout the day today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Emily Vukovic. It's Monday. It is the 27th of January, and we are smack dab in the middle of winter, and this Arctic air is not going anywhere. We've got this system moving through southern Ontario. The bulk of the moisture is now off to the east, but traveling on that 401 kind of open area through Cobourg and in through Belleville and Kingston is going to be disastrous today. Remember last week where they had that 40-car pileup on Friday? It's going to be the same kind of story today. Blowing and drifting snow, whiteout conditions. It's messy. Kitchener-Waterloo, as you can see on the radar, just some low-lying lake effect. We're starting to see that. So roads, they're staying slick. We have blowing snow. We have snow squall watches and snow squall warnings in the area. Mount Forest through Orangeville. Again, the lake, Huron, of course, is not completely frozen. It's still relatively warm compared to the air, and that's why we're seeing these squalls generate. In through Barrie and Aurelia, we do have a snow squall watch in place. So when the winds start to shift, right now they're coming in from a northwesterly direction, so these areas are really starting to see it. When the winds shift to more of a southwesterly direction, that's when Barrie and Aurelia could potentially see some squalls picking up later on this afternoon. Wind chill warnings in place. I am betting that these are going to expand throughout the day today because our temperatures are just continuing to drop. Right now, we've got our winds that are sustained at about 30 to 35 kilometers an hour, but gusting anywhere between 40 and 65 kilometers an hour. It's cold right now. We've already reached our daytime high, -8, but it actually feels closer to -18 when you factor in the wind. And this afternoon, we're dropping to -12, but feeling more like the -20s. Put your parka on and give yourself lots of extra travel time. Isn't that something you'd recommend, Tom? Good morning. It's Monday. It is the 27th of January. And if you're watching us and you're just peeking out from underneath the covers and you're thinking, do I get out of bed today? Do I not get out of bed today? Stay in bed if you can. If you can work from home, great. If you don't have to commute this morning, amazing. We've got this system tracking its way through Ontario. It is now pushed off to the east. That's the bulk of the moisture, but behind it, we're seeing lake effect snow coming off the shores of Huron. Georgian Bay is mostly frozen, but areas like Barrie and Aurelia, who are in a snow squall watch right now, it's because the winds are going to be shifting a little bit later on this afternoon to more of a southwesterly flow, which means you could get hit from those squalls coming off of Huron. We do have a snow squall warning in place. Mount Forest through Orangeville, blowing and drifting snow has certainly become an issue. Whiteouts will be an issue this morning as well for your commute. Not only are we dealing with blowing and drifting snow, we've got wind chill warnings in place. It will feel closer to the -20s to the -30s this afternoon, and that's why we've got this wind chill warning in place. And if I'm a betting woman, which I am, these are going to expand throughout the day today, because with our winds, they're sustained at about 42 kilometers an hour. They're gusting anywhere between 40 and 70 kilometers an hour. Now, the more intense winds down towards the St. Catharines area, but in Toronto, we're gusting up to 54 kilometers an hour. With those wind speeds, that's where we're getting this really intense wind chill. Right now, it feels like -19 through Toronto, temperature of -9. Feels like -22 through Barrie, feels like -18 in Hamilton. This afternoon, temperatures are cold. We're looking at -teens, feeling like -20s when you factor in the wind. The good news is that the system is over and done with. The bad news is that these winds are sticking around throughout the day today and into tomorrow, and that is going to be an issue for lake effect blowing and drifting snow. Because if you notice, if you go outside this morning and you pick up the snow, it is so light and fluffy, you can just blow it right off your hands. The good news is it'll be easy to clean off your car. The bad news is that the Arctic air sucks all of the moisture out of that snow, and that is why it's that kind of light, white, fluffy, easy to move snow, which means it's going to be blowing and drifting around all day today. So the snow plows will come by, they'll clear the road, the winds will pick up, and you know the rest of that story. So we've got the blowing and drifting snow, specifically more so along the shores of Huron and Georgian Bay, because that's where you're also going to be seeing the lake effect continuing throughout the day today and into tomorrow. So additional snowfall amounts, we're looking at about 5 to 15 centimeters along the shores of Huron, up through Barrie, an additional 2 to 5, not out of the question. And then throughout the rest of southern Ontario, we're looking at trace amounts. But again, it's going to be whipping around, causing poor visibility. The highway commute between Cobourg and Belleville and Kingston is going to be gross. All right, I'm going to turn things over to Tommy. He's got more information on your commute this morning. Temperatures are dropping throughout the day today, and with the winds, it's going to feel like the -20s to the -30s. Good morning. Thanks for joining us here on the Weather Network. I'm Emily Vukovic. It feels like winter is lasting forever, doesn't it? But you know what? Spring is like 50-some days away. It will eventually ease. This Arctic air will eventually go away. We have to know that, right? Well, here's the system that moved through yesterday and in through last night. The bulk of the moisture is now moving off towards the east, but left behind it, we do have some lake effect squalls. We've got some low level through Kitchener and Waterloo. It has been very, very, very slippery. Traveling eastbound on the QEW this morning, I saw 2 cars spin out right in front of me, and you know it's frightening when you all of a sudden see their taillights and then their headlights. No thanks. Yeah, tricky drive. Mount Forest in through Orangeville, we're into a snow squall warning. The reason? Huron is not frozen yet. It is still relatively warm compared to the Arctic air, and that's why we're seeing these heavier bands of squalls coming on shore. Now, the snow squall watch that you have in Barrie and Aurelia, it is going to be picking up because of the winds. They're going to shift into more of a southwesterly direction, and that means you're going to starting to see some squalls later on this afternoon. Wind chill warnings in place, and I'm assuming that these are going to expand. Feels closer to the -20s to -30s. Kevin Yards, every single time you're outside doing something fun, I am jealous of you. Today is not one of those days. Oh, Kevin.
No, definitely not, and we're just...
Good morning, it's winter. That's all I'm going to say. It is Monday. It is the 27th of January. I'm Emily Vukovic, and it is going to be a disastrous commute. I was just talking to Tom Reynolds off air, and he was saying so many people in the ditches at this time right now. So please, 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 if you don't have to drive, don't. If you do have to drive, take your time. Be Be slow. Don't be that guy in the ditch. Don't be that girl who spins out on the QEW. All right, the snow is off towards our east, but blowing and drifting snow and squalls are going to be an issue behind it. We do have a snow squall watch in place for Barrie and Aurelia. When the winds shift to more of a southwesterly flow, that is where you're going to start to see some accumulation. And right now we do have a snow squall warning. Winds are still coming in from more of a northwesterly direction, and that is why places like Mount Forest and Orangeville could have the potential to see another 10 centimeters throughout the day today. It's cold. We've got wind chill warnings in place. I am betting that these are going to expand. Wind chills are going to be feeling more like the minus 20s to the minus 30s throughout the day today. The winds right now are sustained anywhere between 40 and 50 kilometers an hour, gusting anywhere between 50 and 70 kilometers an hour. Now we've got Kevin Yard. He joins us in downtown Toronto this morning. And Kevin, every few minutes, you and your guest both turn around completely. The winds are just that bad. Exams canceled. That's the worst. I know a lot of students are probably thrilled about that. Okay, minus 13 tomorrow, feeling like minus 23, and then feeling like minus 21 for Wednesday. The Arctic air starts to lift for Thursday, but we're preparing for our next system that's going to be hitting us over the weekend. So enjoy the sunshine while we have it, but make sure you bundle up because it's staying cold throughout the week. See you in a few moments. Put on the parka. You'll need it today. Wind chill warnings are in place throughout many areas of southern Ontario, and it looks as though they're going to expand to include the city of Toronto. Thanks for joining us on this Monday. It's the 27th of January. I'm Emily Vukovic. Temperatures today are going to be cold. We've got snow. We've got blowing and drifting snow. The good news is that the bulk of the moisture has now moved off towards our east. The bad news is that we've got incredibly strong winds behind it. We've got Arctic air filtering in, and we've got snow squalls to deal with. We've got blowing snow and drifting snow. The snow squall watch for Barrie and Aurelia is for later on today when the winds start to shift to more of a southwesterly flow. The snow squall warning that's in place for Owen Sound down through Mount Forest and Orangeville, that is going to be an additional 10 to 15 centimeters, possibly because of those strong winds that are coming off Huron. Now, Lake Huron is not frozen yet, so that is why we are seeing these bands coming off the water. Wind chill warning in place. Temperatures into the minus teens, feeling like the minus 20s to the minus 30s when you factor in the wind. Right now, our sustained gusts are anywhere from 50 to 70, sustained gusts, that didn't make any sense. Sustained wind is anywhere between 30 and 50 kilometers an hour, and we've got gusts anywhere from 40 to 70 kilometers an hour. Now, the snow that we're dealing with is that light, fluffy, kind of grainy snow. It doesn't have a lot of moisture in it. The Arctic air is actually sucking out all of the moisture, so it's really light and fluffy, and that's why it's going to be blowing and drifting and causing whiteout conditions on the roads. Looking at our winds for this morning, they're going to be kind of at their worst through the morning hours. They start to get a little bit better this afternoon, but we're still going to be seeing gusts 50 to 60 kilometers an hour. Additional snowfall amounts 5 to 15 in those typical kind of lake effect snowbelt areas. Toronto, an additional 2 centimeters, but it's going to be blowing around, causing havoc on the roadways, isn't it, Tom? Good morning. It's Monday. It's the 27th of January. We've been dealing with snow and blowing snow and cold temperatures. It has not been a nice commute. We're going to check in with Tom Reynolds in just a few moments for an update on crashes and people in ditches and spinning out. It's just been awful. Bulk of the moisture off to the east. Squalls picking up right now. I was just looking, and you can actually see a very intense line from Mount Forest over towards Newmarket. So Shelburne, Orangeville, set to see some snow. The winds are really strong right now. We're seeing sustained winds at about 30 to 50 kilometers an hour, gusting 50 to 70 kilometers an hour. We do have a snow squall warning in place through Mount Forest and through Orangeville. The snow squall watch for Barrie and Aurelia, you could see your winds coming off the shores of Huron today, leaving you with a few additional centimeters of snow. So traveling on the 400 northbound could be a bit of a treacherous one this morning and into this afternoon. Wind chill warnings in place. It feels like the mid-minus 20s to the minus 30s in some areas. Our winds are 42 kilometers an hour sustained, gusting to 54, gusting to 73 through St. Catharines, gusting to 47 through Barrie. The winds are going to be at their most intense this morning. They turn into a bit of a more westerly flow later on this afternoon and in through tonight. But for the most part, it is going to be a very blustery day with blowing and drifting snow. And the snow is very grainy. It doesn't have a lot of moisture with it. That Arctic air has literally sucked it dry. So it is very dry. It is very flaky. You can't make a snowman with this. Kevin Yard joins us downtown. And Kevin, today is one of the days that I really, really feel for you. I'm not going to tease you about being outside at all today. Temperatures actually dropping by this afternoon. Throw in the wind, it'll feel like the minus 20s to the minus 30s. Good morning. Thanks for joining us on this Monday. It is January the 27th. I'm Emily Vukovic. It is cold, it is snowing, we've got blowing and drifting snow and snow squall watches and warnings to contend with. We've got lots going on this morning here at the Weather Network. Temperatures are also incredibly cold, feeling more like the minus 20s when you factor in the wind. Bulk of the moisture that we saw last night has now moved off towards the east, but we are still seeing some squalls coming off of Huron. Huron is still relatively warm compared to the Arctic air. That's why we're seeing these intense squalls really start to develop. In between Mount Forest and, say, Newmarket, there's a pretty intense band right there, so Orangeville's going to get some pretty decent snow. Throw in the winds, blowing and drifting snow. We have a snow squall watch and a snow squall warning in place. The snow squall warning includes Mount Forest and Orangeville. The watch is for Barrie and Aurelia. If you are heading out today, give yourself lots of extra time. Blowing and drifting snow is certainly an issue with these winds. These winds are also giving us a wind chill warning for the exact same areas. Temperatures feeling closer to the minus 20s to the minus 30s when you factor that in. Kevin Yard joins us in downtown Toronto, trying his best to stay warm in winds that are gusting up to 60 kilometers an hour. Kevin, it looks awful. How does it feel? Good morning. It's Monday. It is the 27th of January. We are smack dab in the middle of winter, and it certainly feels like it. Environment Canada is calling this winter one of the coldest we have seen in the last 20 years. I'd believe it, wouldn't you? Now, the system that moved through the overnight and early morning has now tracked off towards the east. We are left with very strong winds behind it, cold Arctic air, squalls coming off the lake, blowing and drifting snow. These watches and warnings have now been updated. We are in a snow squall warning through Barrie and Aurelia, so the watch has been upgraded to a warning. And through Mount Forest and Aurelia, we're seeing intense bands coming off the shores of Huron because Huron is not yet frozen. With the winds, it feels closer to the minus 20s to the minus 30s. We do have sustained winds at about 40 to 50 kilometers an hour, and in some cases higher than that, gusting in between 50 and 60 kilometers an hour. The winds are going to be out their strongest through the morning hours. They will taper slightly through the afternoon, but it is still going to be incredibly gusty. And with all that fresh snow blowing and drifting around, we're concerned about whiteout conditions, especially in open areas. So if you have travel plans east of the city today, if you're planning a drive through, say, Cobourg, towards Belleville and in through Kingston, that stretch is going to feel very similar to what it felt like on Friday, where we saw that 40-car pileup. That could be an issue today. The winds are going to shift between today and into tomorrow. We're going to go from a northwesterly flow to a westerly flow to a southwesterly flow throughout the day tomorrow. So the snow squalls are literally just going to shift like a clock. We've got about 5 to 15 centimeters on the way for areas on the shores along Huron. Again, it's not frozen, so we're still seeing those squalls picking up. I was just looking at the radar, and I was looking at a pretty intense band in between Mount Forest and Newmarket, so Orangeville and in through Shelburne. We do have quite a few highway closures, and Tom can certainly provide more insight on that.
Which is all over southern Ontario, just too many to mention. Emily's got details in the long range.
It is going to stay cold. To make matters worse, we've got temperatures into the minus teens for the next few days, feeling more like the minus 20s when you factor in the wind chill. The good news is that we start to warm up near the end of the week, but the bad news is that we're just getting prepared for the next system that is expected to move its way in through southern Ontario for Saturday, giving us more snowfall. By this afternoon, it's going to feel like the mid-minus 20s when you factor in the wind. Good morning, I'm Emily Vukovic. It's Monday. It is the 27th of January. It is cold and snowy to start off. We've also got really intense winds that are gusting and up to about 50 to 60 kilometers an hour through southern Ontario, making blowing and drifting snow an issue. We have Kevin Yard. He joins us in downtown Toronto this morning. And Kevin, at times I know it is hard for people to even stay afoot because of the wind, the blowing and the drifting snow. Very slippery as well with all the fresh snow. Thanks, Kevin. Quick look at the radar. The bulk of the moisture off to the east, but now we're dealing with squalls behind it. So keep that in mind if you are traveling. We do have snow squall watches and warnings still in place, and through Barrie and Aurelia, they have now been upgraded to warnings. The wind chill warning is still set in those same areas, feeling closer to the minus 20s to minus 30s. Here's Tom now with an update on all the issues on the highways. Good morning. Thanks for joining us on this Monday. It's the 27th of January. I'm Emily Vukovic. Active weather moving through southern Ontario. The bulk of the system is now off to the east, but we're left behind with snow squalls coming off the shores of Huron. Blowing and drifting snow, certainly an issue. We do have snow squall warnings in place. Barrie and Aurelia, you have just been upgraded from the watch to a warning, and through Midland as well. Mount Forest and Aurelia. Winds are coming off the shores of Huron, sustained at about 30 to 40 kilometers an hour, but gusting in between 60 and 70 kilometers an hour. We do have a wind chill warning in place. It feels closer to the minus 20s to the minus 30s, so bundle up this morning. Sustained winds right now are at about 48 kilometers an hour through Toronto, but gusting closer to 60. We find Kevin Yard. He is in downtown Toronto battling the conditions. And Kevin, you've actually got people stopping to talk to you in these conditions. I'm surprised because I would have just put my head down and kept on going. One of my friends whose daughter goes to a high school in Hamilton is very excited because her exam got postponed one day. Now, temperatures are cold for the next couple of days. We're looking at the minus teens, feeling like the minus 20s. And then Thursday, we actually warm up. But really, it's just to prepare us for the next system that's going to be moving in through southern Ontario, just in time for the weekend, bringing us more snow. With the blowing and drifting snow, you're going to want to put on your parka today. Temperatures dropping throughout the afternoon. It's actually going to feel like the mid-minus 20s by this afternoon. Thanks for joining us here at the Weather Network. I'm Emily Vukovic. It is Monday. It is the 27th of January, and blowing and drifting snow is our big story today with very powerful winds. Now, the bulk of the moisture, it's off to our east. We're left with squalls coming off the shores of Huron. Those northwesterly winds are setting up just perfectly over water that's not yet frozen and relatively warm compared to our Arctic air. That's why we're seeing these good squalls really develop. Now, we are seeing one that's stretching in through Newmarket, in through Mount Forest, Orangeville, Shelburne area. We've got a lot of road closures and cancellations, a lot of school bus cancellations, but Tom's going to have more details on that. I'm going to show you the watches and warnings that we have in place. We do have snow squall warnings that have been upgraded from watches through Barrie, Aurelia, and in through Midland. Northwesterly winds really causing an issue through Mount Forest and Kincardine, even down towards Kitchener and Waterloo. We've been dealing with some squalls as far south as that coming off the lake. Wind chill warnings in place. It is going to feel closer to the mid-minus 20s to minus 30s throughout the day. Today, temperatures are going to be dropping. We can thank these winds for our wind chill warnings. They are sustained at about 48 kilometers an hour, gusting upwards of about 60 kilometers an hour. The more intense winds are going to be throughout this morning. So the darker the color, the warmer the color, I should say, the more intense the winds are. They're going to ease a little bit by this afternoon, but not much. And then they're just going to pick up in intensity again throughout the day tomorrow, but they're going to shift in direction. 5 to 15 centimeters of additional snowfall, quite possible today in those snow squall areas. Now, Toronto traced to 2 centimeters, but still blowing and drifting snow. Tom, it's going to be like the snowplow goes by, and then 2 seconds later, it looks like it's not even going to make a difference. Hi there. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. It's Monday. It is the 27th of January. I'm Emily Vukovic. It has been a tough morning for your commute. It has been a tough morning to walk the dog. It has been a tough morning to exercise, go for a run. We've got snow and blowing snow, drifting snow. We've got cold temperatures. And to put everything on top of that, we've got lake effect snow coming off the shores of Huron. Now, the bulk of the moisture moved off to our east. What we're left with is squalls coming off the lake. What's happening is that Huron, it's not completely frozen. It is still relatively warm in comparison to the Arctic air that's been flooding in through southern Ontario these last couple of weeks. We have a snow squall warning in place. Barrie, Orillia, and Midland just got upgraded from a watch to a warning, and we're seeing squalls in those areas right now. The big issue with these squalls is going to be the wind. It feels like the mid-minus 20s to the mid-minus 30s when you factor that in. So the wind chill is a big story, but also our sustained winds and our gusts are causing it to be a huge issue for motorists, causing whiteout conditions. We're looking at sustained winds at about 48 kilometers an hour through Toronto, 33 kilometers an hour through Barrie, and through Orangeville. 28 kilometers an hour, but gusting up to 46 kilometers an hour. We're gusting close to 60 through Barrie and Toronto. Down through St. Catharines, the winds have eased slightly. We were seeing gusts up to about 70 kilometers an hour earlier this morning, so about an hour and a half ago. Now, Kevin's been joining us in downtown Toronto this morning. He is really braving the conditions. And Kevin, the lady, is standing next to you with no hat. What's going on there? Dropping throughout the afternoon, feeling closer to the minus 20s when you factor in the wind. I'm Emily Vukovic. It's Monday. It is the 27th of January. The bulk of the snow, it's gone. It's moved out, but it is left behind very gusty winds and very cold temperatures. Arctic air continuing to flood its way over Lake Huron, giving us some snow squalls reaching as far south as Brampton. So today's commute, a gross one. Now we are going to see squalls throughout the day today. We have got watches and warnings in place. Now the warning isn't, well, we've now been upgraded through Barrie and Orillia and Midland. We were in a watch, now we're in a warning. Northwesterly winds going to be hitting these areas hard. I've already seen a pretty intense band through Mount Forest all the way to Newmarket and through Shelburne, down towards Orangeville and now down towards Brampton. The winds feeling closer to the minus 20s when you factor them in, so that's why we have the wind chill warning in place. Our winds are gusting upwards of 50 to 60 kilometers an hour through much of the GTA, and that is why it is such a messy commute this morning. We've got Kevin, he joins us in downtown Toronto, and Kevin, you've been braving these conditions. How does it feel out there? Good morning. Thanks for joining us here on the Weather Network. I'm Emily Vukovic. It is Monday. It's the 27th of January, and it is cold, and we've got fresh snow on the ground. I was actually just talking to Chris May in the hallway, and he said, "Don't look at me. I look awful. I just spent 20 minutes digging out my car." Not pretty. Oh, it's going to be one of those days, though. It's going to be slow going this morning. Your commute is a bit of a mess. Tom Reynolds is going to have all the details on that coming up. The bulk of the moisture is off to the east. We're left behind with cold, cold Arctic air. Squalls coming off the shores of Huron. Lake Huron's not frozen yet. Still relatively warm compared to our Arctic air that's moving through. Snow squall watches and warnings in place. Barrie, Midland, and Orillia have now been upgraded to a warning. It is going to last throughout the day today. We've already seen some pretty intense bands coming off the lake, sinking through Mount Forest, over towards Newmarket, through Orillia, and in through Shelburne, and through Brampton. It's cold. We've got wind chill warnings in place. Winds are going to make it feel closer to the minus 20s to the minus 30s this morning. Winds are sustained at about 40 to 50 kilometers an hour throughout the area, gusting anywhere between 50 and 60 kilometers an hour. And up in Barrie, we're gusting up to 69 kilometers an hour right now. So blowing, drifting snow, major issue on the roads today. It's going to be like when a snowplow goes by, you think, oh, great, they've cleared the road. And then 2 seconds later, it's going to look like they've never even been there. Winds are going to ease throughout the day today and through the overnight. And then throughout the day tomorrow, they'll start to pick up again, coming in from a bit of a different direction. So the snow squalls will start to ease with those southwesterly winds. Now we're looking anywhere between 5 to 15 centimeters of snow in the hardest hit snow squall areas, Wyerton through Port Elgin and through Goderich, Kitchener-Waterloo, also kind of in this band where we could see about 5 additional centimeters. But for most of Toronto, we're looking at a trace to 2 centimeters. But it's going to be blowing and drifting around, causing the roads to be very hazardous. For more details on that, here's Tom. Well, it stays cold for the next few days. Minus 13 tomorrow, feeling like minus 23. It'll feel like minus 21 for Wednesday. By Thursday, warmer air starts to come in through the region, but it's just going to prepare us for the next system that's going to be approaching over the weekend. We're looking at minus 4 for Thursday, feeling like minus 11. Friday, minus 4, and then Saturday, minus 2, and that's when we do have that snow on the way. And through Hamilton, it'll feel closer to minus 28 tomorrow. Tomorrow is a long john kind of day. Temperatures are going to be incredibly cold, especially by the afternoon, because they're just going to continue to drop. Good morning, I'm Emily Vukovic. Thanks for joining us here on the Weather Network. Blowing and drifting snow is certainly our big story today, as are the cold temperatures. But what else is new? We're starting to sound like a broken record. Temperatures have been so cold these last few weeks. Environment Canada is calling this winter one of the coldest in Canadian history. Well, in the last 20 years. But that's still a long time for these conditions. Here's the radar. We're showing the bulk of the moisture off to the east, but we're being left with very cold temperatures and squalls coming off the lake. Now, we do have snow squall warnings and watches in place. The warnings are through Mount Forest, through Orangeville, up through Barrie, Aurelia, and in through Midland. Squalls have already been seen down towards Mount Forest and in through Newmarket, all the way far south as Brampton. We've seen some squalls through Kitchener and Waterloo. It is a really, really messy drive. We have a wind chill warning in place. It feels closer to the mid-20s to the mid-30s. The winds are very strong. They're gusting upwards of 50 to 60 kilometers an hour, and in some cases up to 70, like in Barrie. Kevin Yard joins us downtown. Kevin, you've been dealing with these winds all morning long. How's your face feeling? Is it numb yet? It is all about winter when it comes to what's trending on Twitter. Today we've chosen blowing snow. A lot of people are talking about this. Andrew said, you know it's blowing snow and you can barely see across the street. Yeah, I'd say so. Brandy said, thank you, weather. How did you know that I wanted blowing snow on my birthday? Sorry, Brandy. Just the way it goes. Very video sent in from Bayfield, Ontario. Jillian talked about the snow, blowing snow, and the drifting snow, making her commute a mess. The roads are awful. Hashtag blowing snow, and all I can see is complete white. Hashtag blowing snow. The Weather Network. Hi there, it's Monday. It is the 27th of January. I'm Emily Vukovic. Thanks for joining us. We are smack dab in the middle of winter, and it certainly feels like it. We've had snow move through the overnight, giving some areas upwards of 10 centimeters. Now, that's mostly east of the city, so be prepared to brush off your car if you're just heading out. We've got very cold temperatures, and we've got incredibly strong winds. And with that, I think we should check in with Kevin Yard, because he's in downtown Toronto. He has been braving the elements all morning long. And Kevin, it is absolutely frigid out there. And I literally just saw you kind of lose your balance. Are you all right down there? Thanks, Kevin. I don't know. I appreciate Kevin Yard so much on days like today, thinking that he's outside and I'm not. It's good. We've got squalls coming off the lake. We do have snow squall warnings and watches in place. Barrie, Aurelia, and Midland have now been upgraded to a warning. We are seeing squalls stretch as far south and through Mount Forest and through Orangeville. This is going to continue for the better part of the day, 10 to 15 centimeters, not out of the question for a lot of these areas. We do have a wind chill warning in place, and it looks as though these are going to extend throughout southern Ontario. Winds are making it feel closer to the mid-20s to the mid-30s. You saw Kevin. He was bundled up from head to toe. That is what you need to wear today. Snow pants, long johns. Think ahead. Think this afternoon, because that is when it's going to actually get colder. Temperatures dropping throughout the day today. Our winds have been intense. We are sustained at about 40 kilometers an hour for the city of Toronto, gusting upwards of 50, and in through Barrie, we're actually gusting up to close to 70 kilometers an hour. The good news about these winds is that they are going to ease throughout the day, but not by much. We've been seeing gusts anywhere from 50 to 70 kilometers an hour this morning. By the afternoon, we're going to be seeing gusts anywhere from 50 to 60. So it's still going to be very nasty out on the roads. 5 to 15 centimeters in some areas, especially along Huron shores, up through Barrie and Aurelia, another 5 centimeters possible. Toronto, trace amounts, but it's still going to be blowing and drifting. Very tricky to be out on the roads, isn't it, Tom? Good morning. It's Monday. It is the 27th of January. I'm Emily Vukovic. It has been a cold and snowy commute for many people across the GTA. The good news is that the main portion of the system is now off towards our east. The bad news is that behind it, we're seeing more Arctic air flooding in, and we're seeing squalls coming off the lake. Now, through Georgian Bay, which is frozen, we're not seeing too many squalls. A few through the Barrie and Aurelia area, but it's mostly what's coming off of Lake Huron. That's where we're going to see heavier accumulation. Now, we've seen a fairly decent band go through Mount Forest, through Shelburne, in through the Markham area down towards Brampton. I mean, it's just going to be a mess if you have to be out on the roads today. We do have a snow squall warning in place. Barrie and Orillia and Midland have been upgraded to the warning status. They were in the watch through most of the morning hours. We do have a wind chill warning in place. Temperatures are going to feel like the mid-minus 20s to the mid-minus 30s when you factor in the wind, so incredibly cold. The good news is that the winds will start to ease throughout the day today. They're going to be at their strongest this morning and then into the afternoon. They're still going to be intense. I mean, we're still going to see winds gusting anywhere between 50 and 60 kilometers an hour, but we're not going to be hitting that 70 kilometer an hour gust status by the afternoon. Temperatures will be cold. We've already hit our daytime high. They are just going to drop throughout the afternoon. So we're looking at minus 12 as our daytime high. Additional snowfall amounts, we're looking at about 5 to 15 centimeters in those kind of typical snow squall areas, the ones that are coming off the shores of Huron. Less than 2 centimeters for the city of Toronto, but it's going to be blowing and drifting. So it's going to be one of those days where the snowplow hits the street. The long-range forecast doesn't look awful, doesn't look great, but at least we're going to be seeing some sunshine. Cold temperatures will continue for the next few days. It's going to feel like the minus 20s for tomorrow and into Wednesday. By Thursday, however, we do start to warm up. We're going to see warmer air moving into the area, but it's just preparing us for the next system that's going to be hitting us over the weekend. Tough commute. We've got snow and blowing snow and cold temperatures. All three of them making things a little rough this morning. You're going to want to put on your parka because those cold temperatures I was just mentioning, they are going to get colder throughout the day. You throw in the winds, it is going to be frigid again this afternoon with all that Arctic air. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm Emily Vukovic. It's Monday. It's the 27th of January. We're smack dab in the middle of winter, and it certainly feels like it. Kevin Yard has been joining us in downtown Toronto, and I'm going to show you the radar and the watches and the warnings in a moment. But first, let's head to Kevin because he has been braving these conditions all morning long. Kevin, can you feel your face, or is it numb yet?
So get ready for a blowing snow condition day. Back inside the studio, Emily, my lips, it's so hard to talk. They're numb. Yeah.
Poor Kevin. Thanks, Kevin. And Ingrid, there is no way I'd be riding a bike in these conditions. I don't even like going out in these conditions. Kevin was talking about the snow and how light and kind of fluffy it is. It's because that Arctic air really just sucks all the moisture out of it. So that's why it's that really light kind of fluffy snow. We're dealing with squalls coming off of Huron. It's not frozen, so we are seeing pretty intense squalls, and this is why we have a snow squall warning in place for many areas. An additional 10 to 15 centimeters is not out of the question. Wind chill warnings, chances are good. They'll probably expand throughout southern Ontario today. It's going to feel like the mid-minus 20s to the minus 30s. The winds are going to start to ease throughout the day today. They're going to be the strongest this morning. By the afternoon, we're still going to see wind gusts of about 50 to 60 kilometers an hour. When it's all said and done, we're looking at about a trace to 2 centimeters through Toronto additionally, but in those snowbelt areas, up to 15.
Go to the Weather Network.
It is all about winter when it comes to what's trending on Twitter. Today we've chosen blowing snow. A lot of people are talking about this. Andrew said, you know it's blowing snow when you can barely see across the street. Yeah, I'd say so. Brandy said, thank you, weather. How did you know that I wanted blowing snow on my birthday? Sorry, Brandy. Just the way it goes. Very video sent in from Bayfield, Ontario. Jillian talked about the snow, blowing snow, and the drifting snow making her commute a mess. The roads are awful. Hashtag blowing snow, and all I can see is complete white. Hashtag blowing snow.
Closed captioning of this program is